Dennosuke Uchimaru had been selected to be the strongest of the Shitennou, chosen by the Demon King himself. The king praised Dennosuke, saying he was the chosen one from another world, a soul summoned from the underworld. He granted Dennosuke the power to rule and tasked him with overseeing all his affairs. Before Dennosuke came to this new world, he was excited about his new adventure, thinking he would love his new place and job. However, his excitement didn't last long as he was hit by an old woman riding a scooter, causing him to fall to the ground. When he regained consciousness, he found himself surrounded by the Demon King and the 3 other Shitennou. Having lost his memory, he was confused and asked questions like, "What happened here?" and "Where am I?" He even wondered if this place was hell or the underworld. The Demon King responded, "Dennosuke Uchimaru, you are in the Demon King's castle, and I summoned you here because of your abilities." He informed Dennosuke that he was now one of the Shitennou, a foreign employee. Despite the king's efforts to explain, Dennosuke remained confused about the situation. He didn't understand what Shitennou were or why he had been chosen as a relocated employee. The Demon King then began to recount Dennosuke's achievements in his previous life, reminding him of his transfer to a foreign factory after 5 years with his company. Dennosuke had learned the local language and decided to educate the villagers, becoming a key figure in the operation of the new factory. As the Demon King finished reading his resume, Dennosuke was astonished. The king explained that he had chosen Dennosuke after reviewing his CV, believing he would make a worthy addition to his army. Dennosuke felt a mix of pride and fear, recognizing his abilities were acknowledged, but also worrying that the job might involve actions against humanity. Dennosuke decided to decline the offer. Standing before the Demon King in the castle, he formulated his thoughts. The king outlined the benefits he would receive if he accepted the position: becoming a Shitennou, receiving a salary and authority equivalent to an executive position in the human world, and being welcomed by the demons. However, the king assured him that if he refused, he would be returned to his world, as they didn't want him to stay against his will. After hearing this, Dennosuke was left speechless. Dennosuke Uchimaru was in awe of the respect the demons had for workers' rights. Reflecting on his conversations with his old boss on Earth, he felt embarrassed and unworthy to speak with the Demon King. The king, however, interrupted his thoughts and told him not to believe the negative words of his former boss. The Demon King called Dennosuke's previous boss an idiot for failing to see the hard work and struggles of his employees. He then asked Dennosuke to choose between his old job, which would crush him, and the demon army, which valued him. As Dennosuke stood before the king, Ulmander, one of the more assertive demons, interrupted. Ulmander declared Dennosuke too weak to be a Shitennou. While Ulmander addressed the king, Dennosuke couldn't help but notice the demon's revealing attire. Ulmander's harsh words about Dennosuke being a useless human deeply saddened him, causing him to reflect on his self-worth. After Ulmander's speech, the king decided to give Dennosuke a test. While Dennosuke felt frustrated by the idea, Ulmander seemed eager for the challenge. The Demon King explained that the test would showcase Dennosuke's strengths, hoping to change the others' perception of him. But Dennosuke refused, claiming he had no powers. Suddenly, Ulmander leaped at Dennosuke, delivering a powerful kick. Just then, the king stepped in, saving Dennosuke. He reprimanded Ulmander for acting rashly and letting emotions cloud his judgment. The king urged Ulmander to consider the impact of his actions on Dennosuke, who was visibly shaken. Ulmander, feeling a bit of pity for Dennosuke, still refused to accept the king's decision to make Dennosuke a Shitennou. He argued that the demon army was full of evil creatures, demi-humans, and magical beings, not weak humans. He warned that even if Dennosuke became a Shitennou, stronger beings would overpower him. The Demon King revived Dennosuke, who then expressed his gratitude, acknowledging that without the king's intervention, Ulmander's kick would have killed him. The king interrupted, assuring him that the test wasn't about physical strength. He wanted Dennosuke to serve as a diplomat for the demon army, negotiating with powerful beings. The king promised a test that matched Dennosuke's previous work experience. To Dennosuke's surprise, the king assigned Ulmander as his bodyguard, despite Olmunder's confusion over the unexpected decision. In the end, Uchimaru reluctantly agreed to take the test, despite his complaints about why he, a demoted overseas worker, was chosen to become a Shitennou. The Demon King understood his confusion and explained that he brought Uchimaru from Earth because he was crucial for the demon army's mission. Hearing this, Uchimaru realized he had never received such recognition back on Earth. Motivated by the king's words, he decided to give the test his best shot. At the time of Denosuk's arrival, the Demon King's army was in the process of assimilating various tribes from the surrounding areas. They had already negotiated with races like the Salamanders and the Werewolves. Currently, the army was attempting to negotiate with the largest and most horned demi-humans, the Minotaurs, to incorporate them into the Demon King's forces. However, the negotiations were failing as the Minotaurs were notoriously difficult to deal with. The king decided to test Uchimaru's skills by having him try to gain the Minotaur's trust using his top-notch negotiation abilities. Uchimaru didn't like this idea because it was incredibly risky, even more daunting than any job interview he had faced, including at Google. Upon hearing about the test, Olmunder agreed that successful negotiation would earn Uchimaru due recognition. However, he warned Uchimaru not to meddle with the Minotaurs lightly, as many had been seriously injured in such attempts, cautioning him not to end up as a human rug. Uchimaru was baffled by this term. On the way to Terius's chamber, Olmunder grew impatient with Uchimaru's slow pace. Uchimaru, terrified, recalled stories he had heard about the Minotaurs being giant bull monsters and doubted whether negotiating with them was even possible. Olmunder explained that the Demon King's army aimed to expand its ranks by recruiting powerful creatures, which was why they were trying to negotiate with the Minotaurs. However, their wild nature made them tough negotiators. Olmunder tried to mock Uchimaru's physical inadequacies, warning him to be cautious even if he managed to survive the encounter with the Minotaurs. Finally, they reached their destination. Olmunder opened the door, revealing Terius, the leader of the Minotaurs. Uchimaru trembled at the sight of the colossal figure. As the door opened, Uchimaru's determination and courage plummeted to zero. He suddenly believed that the mission was impossible and that this might be the end of his life. Sensing Uchimaru's fear, Olmunder felt a pang of pity for him. As a result, Olmunder decided to help Uchimaru. When Uchimaru began speaking with Terius, the conversation quickly turned aggressive. Terius accused the Demon King's army of failing to meet all his demands despite their efforts. Uchimaru felt frustrated by his poor negotiation skills. He tried to give Terius some space, but his techniques offered no real solutions. When Uchimaru attempted to continue the conversation, Terius suddenly blurted out random offensive words, damn, and penis. Olmunder, irritated by Terius's vulgarity, confronted him. This led to both Olmunder and Uchimaru being thrown out of Terius's quarters. Olmunder was both angry and desperate about the failed negotiation. Nearby, Uchimaru noticed a piece of trash and asked if it was just ordinary garbage or something significant. It turned out that the trash was a token brought by Sir Terius during his visit to the Demon King. Uchimaru wanted to visit Terius again, but Olmunder was not happy about it. Realizing that a lack of cultural understanding could harm their relationship, Uchimaru decided to collect the trash to learn more about Minotaur culture. He told Olmunder to leave everything to him. Olmunder was surprised by Uchimaru's sudden confidence and bravery compared to his demeanor just a few minutes earlier. He began to see the truth in the Demon King's claim about Uchimaru's negotiation skills. Uchimaru analyzed their previous conversation and identified a crucial hint, the word penis. Olmunder was puzzled as to why Uchimaru focused on this word and calmly mentioned it again in front of him. Uchimaru ventured alone into Terius's chamber, carrying a bag of trash. Olmunder, worried he might get into trouble, watched anxiously. Inside the chamber, Terius, angry and agitated, yelled at Uchimaru for dirtying the Demon King's castle with wet and muddy trash. However, Uchimaru surprised everyone by announcing that he had successfully negotiated with Terius. Terius had agreed to finalize the assimilation agreement details with the Demon King. Olmunder couldn't believe it and asked how he managed it. Uchimaru explained that the negotiation was challenging because they didn't understand Terius well. But by speaking in Terius's dialect, he could discern his needs. Terius had brought straw to help him sleep comfortably, but the Demon King's soldiers didn't understand and didn't allow the straw into his room. Consequently, Terius couldn't sleep well during his visit. Uchimaru listened carefully to Terius's dialect and realized that the phrase, "damn penis," actually meant small in Terius's language. This understanding allowed Uchimaru to meet Terius's needs and successfully negotiate with him. While they were talking, the Demon King suddenly appeared and announced that he had signed an agreement with Terius to integrate the Minotaurs into his army. Uchimaru passed the test and was awarded a watch by the Demon King, confirming his position as one of the Shitennou. After receiving the watch, Olmunder asked Uchimaru to raise his hand with him as a symbol of their collaboration. Olmunder, being a tsundere, claimed he was only doing it for recognition for helping Uchimaru pass the test. Initially, Olmunder was supposed to complete the negotiations alone, but the Demon King decided they should work together, realizing that a rigid, isolated attitude could harm the organization. Olmunder acknowledged Uchimaru's skill in communication and asked for his assistance in future negotiations. Uchimaru accepted, feeling proud and excited about his new role as a Shitennou. After successfully completing their diplomatic mission with the Minotaurs, Olmunder and Uchimaru were tasked with negotiating with the Ogre tribe. This tribe held significant power and influence, and incorporating them into the Demon King's army would be a substantial advantage. However, if they became enemies, it could spell trouble. Negotiating with the Ogre tribe was notoriously difficult due to their extensive plans. Seeing Uchimaru's success with the Minotaurs, the Demon King assigned him the critical task of negotiating with the ogres. Uchimaru was eager to take on the responsibility, but his excitement quickly faded as he realized the enormity of the task. As they approached the ogre leader's castle, they encountered two intimidating guards. Olmunder introduced himself and Uchimaru, requesting an audience with the leader. The guards exchanged glances before allowing them entry. Inside, they were struck by the vastness and potential of the ogre tribe, which could rival the Demon King's forces. Olmunder assumed the main issue would be with the ogre leader, Ogier. Upon entering the leader's chamber, both Uchimaru and Olmunder were intimidated by Ogier's fearsome appearance. Ogier's face was terrifying, and he seemed angry about something. Olmunder began to introduce himself and explain their purpose, but Ogier interrupted, commanding them to do nothing unless he ordered it. Olmunder, unsure of what to do next, complied and stood silently. Uchimaru realized the leader's strength as even the usually explosive Olmunder was holding back. Ogier stated that the real reason he had come was that he wanted to be one of the Demon King's generals. He demanded Olmunder bring him the Demon King's head as a condition for joining their forces. Enraged, Olmunder began to curse at him. Uchimaru grabbed Olmunder's hand, trying to calm him down. He then spoke to Ogier, thanking him for his time and politely requesting to return to the Demon King's army to consider the opportunity Ogier presented. Olmunder, still fuming, tried to insult the leader, but Uchimaru pushed him out of the room, understanding what Ogier truly wanted. The leader had no intention of joining the Demon King's army. He was merely trying to provoke them and avoid negotiations, seeking to save his tribe from unnecessary conflict. Olmunder, still angry, cursed the leader for insulting the Demon King. Uchimaru advised him to stay calm, explaining the leader's real intent. He understood that if Olmunder exploded with anger in front of the leader, it could lead to accusations of poor treatment and make it seem like their fault. Olmunder was shocked by Uchimaru's calm reaction. Uchimaru was angry too, but chose to remain silent rather than show his anger in front of the leader, understanding it wouldn't benefit the Demon King. Olmunder regretted his actions and apologized to Uchimaru. Uchimaru told him not to apologize, saying that without him, he would have been defeated. As they contemplated their next steps, a girl suddenly appeared before them. Surprised, Olmunder and Uchimaru asked who she was. The girl introduced herself as Olulu, the daughter of Ogier. Olmunder immediately thought this was an attack and became angry, But Uchimaru calmed the situation and asked Olulu what she wanted from them. Olulu wanted her father removed from power. Olmander and Uchimaru were taken aback by this revelation, finding it hard to believe. Olulu explained that despite the ogre tribe's vast influence over other tribes, they were in a financial crisis and struggling to feed themselves. She blamed her father's outdated and harsh ruling system for these problems. Uchimaru had suspected something was wrong, noting the poor equipment of the soldiers, the dark and despairing atmosphere of the mansion, and the top-down management style, where the leader made all decisions directly. He saw parallels between the ogre tribe's situation and the decline of a large corporation on Earth. Olulu firmly believed that the only solution was to join the Demon King's army, but her father, Ogre, refused to acknowledge this. Instead, he chose to ignore the issues. Ogre was no longer in his prime, and if he were to die, the ogre tribe would descend into chaos due to the lack of a suitable successor. This left Olulu stressed and desperate to find a solution. Uchimaru understood but pointed out that Olulu was too reckless in sharing their internal issues with strangers. He advised her to be more cautious but praised her for her kindness. Olmander, feeling jealous after Uchimaru praised Olulu, noticed Olulu explaining her ability to discern trustworthy people, which was why she chose to confide in Uchimaru. As she slowly approached Uchimaru, Olulu took his hand and implored him to marry her and become the new ruler, aiming to reform the old order. This made Olmander even more jealous. Haha, that escalated quickly, but I'm okay with it. Uchimaru interrupted and told Olulu that even if the people wanted to replace their leader, they would choose someone from their own tribe, not an outsider like him. But Olulu refused to accept this perspective, believing that the people were blind to the problems right in front of them, just like her father. Uchimaru understood Olulu's situation and her desire for change, but he disagreed with her approach. He thought that Olulu saw her father as the sole problem and assumed that replacing him would fix everything. But organizations are not that simple. After explaining this, Olulu asked for his advice on what she should do, as she was the only one aware of the impending danger while everyone else was oblivious. Uchimaru suggested a way to get the chieftain to negotiate, but it required Olulu's determination. She was confused by what he meant. He told her that she couldn't just be a spectator in this, she had to get involved. Olulu was eager to hear how. A week later, Ogre summoned Uchimaru and Olmander to his place. He yelled at them, demanding to know why they were merging all the tribes around the ogre tribe. A week earlier, Uchimaru had devised a clever plan to coax Ogre into negotiating. The ogre tribe used to help neighboring tribes when they were short on food, but now they were struggling with their own supplies. Denosuk saw an opportunity and decided to gather as many surrounding tribes as possible to encircle the ogre tribe. He planned to persuade them by offering food aid in exchange for their support. Denosuk used a method from his previous world, reluctantly forcing large companies to buy his products. In this method, he did business with small and medium-sized companies around, offering them credit to buy his products, indirectly forcing larger companies to purchase his new goods. Olmander hadn't expected this strategy to call Ogre to them. By assimilating all the other tribes around the ogre tribe, Uchimaru created pressure. In front of the chieftain, Uchimaru confidently asserted that the people in the neighboring tribes were living in poverty and that joining the Demon King's army was the only way to ensure a better life for themselves. Ogre was furious, claiming that the ogre tribe had always ruled the area and no other tribe would take over. But Uchimaru remained calm, knowing that emotional negotiations would only lead to defeat. He interrupted the chieftain and explained that the idea for the negotiation was not his, but a proposal from the ogre tribe itself. The leader was taken aback and told Uchimaru to stop being ridiculous since he never requested such a thing. Uchimaru pointed to the open door, and Olulu stepped out. The leader was shocked to see his daughter, Olulu. Uchimaru revealed that Olulu had played a key role in discussing the merger with the surrounding tribes, showing them that she was the chieftain's daughter, which made the negotiations smooth. The leader was amazed by his daughter's work. Olulu's presence kept him from getting angry or misbehaving. She proposed that if they joined the Demon King's army, they would receive support. However, Olulu rejected the idea, refusing to allow assimilation. Olulu shouted that times had changed. Due to his old age, the chieftain couldn't grasp new ideas. She claimed that they needed to unite with the other tribes. Seeing Olulu's refusal to accept the idea of assimilation made the chieftain even angrier with her. Uchimaru then proposed an alliance with the Demon King instead of a merger. He suggested collaboration between the Demon King's army and the Ogre tribe. This idea piqued the chieftain's interest. Uchimaru offered this to ensure that Olulu felt secure and wasn't forced to join the army. This alliance wouldn't affect the autonomy of either party. Olulu said he would consider the proposal and inform them of his decision. Olulu was thrilled to hear that her father was considering an alliance with the Demon King's army. Uchimaru thanked the leader and left the room with Olulu. The leader was astonished when his daughter decided to negotiate on her own. He wasn't sure what she meant when she said, "Times have changed." Sometime later, Olulu brought a letter of approval to Uchimaru's room, but Uchimaru seemed busy reading a pile of literature. Olulu asked him about it. As the newly appointed Shitennou, Uchimaru was struggling to complete the task given by the Demon King, selecting his subordinates. He found it challenging to differentiate between who was good and bad and couldn't decide who was superior between demi-humans and magical beings. Olulu advised him to use his intuition in such situations to make the best decision. While trying to analyze the suggestion, Uchimaru awkwardly stared at Olulu, confusing him with this strange behavior. Uchimaru then expressed his desire to have Olulu as his partner, which took Olulu by surprise. He replied that they hadn't gone on enough dates to be partners. Uchimaru explained that Olulu was his first acquaintance upon arriving, and working with someone he knew brought him comfort. Olulu was thrilled that Uchimaru wanted him as his partner and accepted his request. As they talked, there was a knock on the door, and Uchimaru went to see who it was. It turned out to be Olulu. Olulu was happy to see Uchimaru, but he seemed uninterested in her visit. Uchimaru asked why she had come, calling her Miss Olulu, because he didn't want to get involved in anything beyond their negotiations. Olulu disliked being called Miss, and asked him to stop. She explained that she had been assigned as a temporary worker on behalf of the Ogre tribe, as part of their alliance with the Demon King's army. Uchimaru suspected that her arrival might be due to a personnel exchange clause in their agreement. Olulu, also present, looked jealous of the interaction between Uchimaru and Olulu. Suddenly, Olulu grabbed Uchimaru's hand, irritating Olulu. Olulu thanked Uchimaru, saying he was responsible for the positive changes in her tribe. Uchimaru humbly replied that it was his duty to help, but Olulu was annoyed by his response. Realizing that the Ogre tribe had helped his own people, Uchimaru assured Olulu that he was willing to do anything to assist her. Olulu, feeling envious of Uchimaru's generosity, asked him to clean the room. Olulu, skilled in cleaning, kindly offered to do the task. Curious about why Olulu trusted him without knowing much about him, Uchimaru asked what judgment she had seen in him. Olulu replied that she used her intuition to trust him. Uchimaru then asked Olulu to work as his subordinate, which she happily agreed to. However, Olulu was angry about this request. Uchimaru told Olulu that he would also be happy to work with him, but Olulu was upset that he had invited Olulu to be his subordinate. Olulu told Uchimaru that he was no longer his colleague but rather his rival, even though they were both Shitennou.